Well, on the onset, let me thank the organizers for asking me to come and speak in this August gathering. Well, it's completely new. I have been speaking in geological circles and hardcore technical, but this is for the first time I'm speaking such an August gathering who are speaking on the non-traditional security challenges. Yeah, I worked more than 20 years on glaciers, but never thought on this line. Now, an important aspect is the permafrost, which has been not at all been taken care of, because the permafrost, as you see right from here, is a seasonal freezing, an important component of the cryosphere, that means the cold region, which are similarly affected by the climate change, evidenced by retreat of glaciers and recession and the number of decreasing seasonal freezing, right? Then the change in permafrost are not noticeable as compared to glaciers, frequently overlooked. Why? Then when we see there's so many your remote sensing data and all those things is all on the glaciers. You may hardly see any paper on permafrost, because permafrost is one thing for which you have to do legwork. You have to go over it, and till this date, there's no remote sensing technology which directly tells something about the permafrost condition. But I would say it may be too much emphasizing. It's a silent killer, because once the permafrost recedes, it cannot come back. Even the glaciers, whatever. The climate change has a direct impact. So then another aspect which I thought, when let me squeeze all the thought what I have this connected with the permafrost and the cold region, is also the seasonal freezing, which we are not considering. Now the number of days of seasonal freezing is also decreasing. Like states like Himachal Pradesh and all those things, their fruit crops are, the pattern is of the apple is changing. So similarly in Ladakh. So this is indirectly having the effect on the people of the region, which is forcing them to migrate from the regions from where they are, because the climate change is affecting so much of their livelihood. Now, let me tell you briefly, the permafrost, we have got three types. One is the completely a continental type, which is continuous, what we have in Siberia and all those. Then we have got discontinuous, and then we have the sporadic. And in India, we have the mountain permafrost, where it is the this is the seasonal freezing. You see the water has got completely frozen in the soil, and all the crystals have been formed. Well, now coming to this thing, when we see, as my previous speakers spoke about, the impact of the flight of the continent and the tectonic development of the Himalayas and the rise of the Tibetan continent, they are the northern side. He spoke on the southern side when the Indian continent flight towards the Asian continent, that means the Angaran land and its collision, created your Pacific, this Bay of Bengal and all those things, the Arabian Ocean. Previously, they were all connected with the main Gondwana land. So, there are the two aspects of this. Now, up here, when we are speaking on the mountain permafrost, we see the winds coming from the Bay of Bengal and the monsoons. They are hitting against this Himalaya. So we have something, the winds rising up from 0 to almost 100 meters here in Delhi to right up to 8,000 meters. So what is having an impact? So in the now minus, I'm not going to speak on the glaciers, but on the permafrost side, that there's also a region which remains under below 0 degrees centigrade for almost for more than 2-3 years, and that is also. So now we have got two type of permafrost, which is on the leeward side of the Himalayas and one on the northern side, that is the dry, cold, arid region of Ladakh in our area. Now, what's happening? Now, we are talking about the recession of the glaciers and its impact. Ladakh, Leh Ladakh, the Indus Valley in particular, Zanskar is coming directly to the rain shadow area and we get some snowfall. Then Indus Valley is completely dry, arid. Then towards the Karakum side, we are getting the rains from the western side, that means from the Middle East and all those things. So there's also some inducement of the induction of moisture. So, but this Indus Valley in center is completely dry, arid. So now in Ladakh, we see briefly, it has gone 5 glacial cycles. People of Ladakh, now if we say adaptation to the climate change, people of Ladakh have been adapting to the climate change from since if there was no recession of the glaciers, Ladakhis would not have been there. It is because Osterman very clearly says it unconsciously owe a debit to the Quaternion glaciers. So we are there just because of that. Now the last phase of Anthropocene, all that terms we are using. So in that, but this particular period, we will almost face a point of no return. When there's no glaciers, where the people are going to survive? The Indus is so deep down, it is no of value. It's only the small glaciers which are. Now, just I'll briefly, this is thanks to Google. Nowadays we can see so much of things. So now I've divided the entire catchment of Ladakh in zones, that was the seasonal freezing, then the permafrost and the glaciated zone. This is the Kangla zone. And the glacier at the top, which is feeding the Ladakh town, is just 1.5 kilometers. And it has stopped reacting to the climatic change. So it's not receding. Recession is only 2 meters or so. But here you can see. Now I'm showing this ELA equilibrium line where the melting and the accumulation is almost same. As you can see, it's more than 1/3 of the glaciers. It's only 1/3 is left behind. So there's no accumulation. So that means we have a very dark future. The glacier is melting, thinning down, and nothing accumulating, because even what rains, because of the climatic change in effect, all those things we have got in the last few years. There are so many disasters we have seen, the floods and all. But in winters, there's hardly any snow. So what we are thinking of now, this permafrost zone, you just note it down. In the next, I'll show here. Now in this valley, if you go, topmost is the glaciated zone, then the permafrost. Now with the melting of the glaciers and the rise of temperature, what's happening, the contribution of the glaciers has significantly reduced. It is the permafrost which is giving you the meltwater. So unfortunately, after now you see, this are some of the things which you see. They are typical permafrost features just in the backyard of Leh Ladakh. All people, so many tourists go and all, but this only 8 kilometers from Leh, nobody has noticed this permafrost. And this permafrost is almost similar to what we have in the features, what you see, this stone rings, stone strips, is what we have in Antarctica. So that what my thing is, that how this permafrost is being affected. I'll just start, there's so much to speak, but I'll try to squeeze as much as possible. Now with this warming of permafrost, there this so much of this landslides, rock falls are coming. every year. So this is going to be a lot of problems for the mountaineers and for the even for development of roads, because as the temperature of the valley wall rises, the ice which is on the surface is almost melting down, and the rock falls, what we call as the glue of the mountains also, this permafrost. Now you see how much rockfall is taking place. This is just happening right now. It's not that we have to go in the past. This is happening right now. Now this talus cones with interstitial ice, that means we get rock falls. But when these rock falls get saturated with water, they behave like rock glaciers. So now just keep in mind this particular slide. Then when I come on how they are different from the permafrost in the wet zone, that means across the Great Himalayan axis. Now here's the rock glacier is now almost blocking a river, because the ice is so much that it's being melted by the water. But after some time, the rock debris will be so much that it is going to block the river, and you can have a possibility of the glacial landslide blocking floods, what we call in Groff, but it could be otherwise also. Now, this slide you see, now this slide is on the Leh-Manali road. You see the debris what is coming because of the too much of rains is getting accumulated into these talus cones, and before it can seep out, the cold period sets in and it freezes. So it starts like behaving like a mini glacier. So what we call technically as rock glaciers. So up here, these rock glaciers you can see, I pointed four of them rather. And in the extreme side, there's where the road is cutting through, it is just is clear. Why? Because the water has not accumulated into that talus slope. So the permafrost and these conditions are so intermingled, and the seasonal freezing, that they are having an impact on our day-to-day livelihood. And in the coming session now, here you can see the road when it freezes, it is going to have an unevening, but whereas there are countries around where they are doing a lot of research on this particular thawing, and how to somehow building bridges over it if they are not able to control this area. Now there's a very in 2015, in mid of winter, there was a landslide. Now many theories were put and all those things. So on May 17th, it created a 10 to 15 kilometers long lake, and on 7th of May it bursted. The cause, how we have got landslides in monsoons. We have got landslides when there is plenty of rain. But in Ladakh, this landslide occurred in mid of winter when everything was freezing. Why? It was thaw and freezing. Because in the slide on the right left-hand side on corner, you can see where it is 50 meters. You can see the rocks are just dipping into the river, and they have been literally lifted by the water in between, and the layers have are now being pushed. As soon as they melt, they come down. What happened in nowadays? There is a very strange phenomenon because of the short period of winter. They are defreezing is taking place much early, thaw and freeze. So with that, what has happened? This rock got dislodged, and there was a landslide in midwinter. So this has to be now investigated rather in all detail, because these areas are not monitored. Now we are saying right at the bottom you see there's a Taru village. This particular village, the glacier may have been there in past, But now the glaciers is reduced to only 500 meters. It's not glacier when we say in glaciological term. It is just an ice field, which is sustaining that village. But in rest, it is all permafrost. And it is irreversible change going on. How long? And very strangely, people never thought about it, but they have made the Kashmir University campus right at in that catchment. So I wonder whether they ever thought of the water problem, what they are going to face in the future, and they have already built a campus. Now you can see it more clearly. Here you can see it is just a small patch of ice field which is feeding. So how long this is going to be there? I can speak a lot on this. This melting of permafrost. When this permafrost melts, you'll have the shrinkage of wetlands. That's again going to cause a lot of problem for these communities who rear yaks, pashmina goats, and all those things. In the next slide, you can see now. This is this is from the press I took, but the photograph I'm just trying to explain. It's a clear case of receding permafrost. You can just see here, the green patch of what you see is on a thin layer of the permafrost which melts in summers. And you can see those green shrubs right ahead, you are there. That means it was all wet in those things, but as it recedes, so only the greenery is also receding because there's no water, so there's no grass. So this pashmina goat which are feeding on this particular area, after some time they are going to be in problem. So what about these nomadic tribes? They will have to go somewhere or change the profession. Or even the pashmina goats which are living. In some of the papers, what I saw in blog, that now they are reduced to 1 lakh something. So that means they are also under threat. So if this keeps on changing, that means industry and the people who are living in the eastern borders of Ladakh, they will have to change their profession and their style of life. So here, but they have their own. This Changpas of Ladakh, they have a cyclic migration. They keep on migrating from one pasture to another. This is a top floor. This is a very old photograph, 1982, when I had been to Shiok River. These people are travel from the areas of southeastern Ladakh to the Shiok Gorge, because there are some valleys which are only accessible in the winters because the water come down. So now there was a flood in Leh Ladakh which caused. It went unnoticed because it didn't damage like some disaster. It was only a few culverts and all those things. But it is an indicator that the climate is changing fast. Now, as the waters, the permafrost freezes, lot of toxins what we are creating, that means we are responsible in the plains and globally, who are transmitting via the monsoon rains and all those things up to the glaciers, those toxins and DDT and all those things, etc., all the pollutants are going to be released back into the rivers, what we are in Ladakh and those areas which are just next to the glaciers. So that's another big problem what we are going to have. Now, this is somewhat I have said the possible near future what could happen, the present permafrost and the future of permafrost, and ultimately where do we go. Now, a lot of people have talked, and I would like to talk on this aspect. How do we get young people to work on the problems of cold Himalayan regions? This is a big problem. I retired in 2007. Then my student started, and my junior colleague in Ladakh, he's finding it so difficult to get people to work. Because as I was talking to one of my August members here, that a person who goes to a mountain, spends cold nights in those tents, he gets a similar pay packet with when he travels to mountain. There are so many objections because he has to go to the mountains, employ laborers and all those things. But a person of the same class and rank in plains, he gets the same package, everything, and a better life. Even working so hard, and you come at the end of the day, or rather the end of the year, it's only this many meters the glacier has receded. But the amount of hard work what it goes is not at all taken care of. Now here a change on thinking has to be done. Make it compulsory, what I think, because all these are the hydroelectric projects people are there. So make it compulsory for them to employ youngsters. Yeah, I'll be fast. Then establishing a permafrost network. Then launch multidisciplinary R&D project in multi-institutional mode along select Himalayan south-north sections, especially all along the Hindu Kush Himalayas, so that at least some data is available to us for the policymakers like all of this August gathering. Thank you, sir.